For today's 6-minute makeover, we're going to look at Tarot and Tea, a metaphysical shop that sells all kinds of tarot-related gifts, cards, printables, and so on. The owner has contacted me because she's been hearing gossip that metaphysical shops cannot succeed on Etsy. So if you're worried that you're selling something that might not work on Etsy, there's a simple way to find out. All you need to do is search for something that describes what you're selling and see how many items are listed in that category. So in her case, I searched for tarot and we're seeing about 34,000 results here. How do you know if this is a big number or not? Well, let's look at a much larger category, like jewelry, for example. Here we have 14 million results. So clearly this item is in demand on Etsy. That's why there's so much competition. So if you're in a smaller category like this, it's not the end of the world. You can still make things succeed, but Etsy might be your secondary source of monetization. So for example, many people who are in a smaller category like this are running an email list and a blog in order to drive traffic to their Etsy shop. I already talked about this in another video, so check below if you want to watch that video in full. But one of the things that you can do that this seller is already doing is expand out into related categories. Here's some decor, here is a mug as well. So she's expanding out into larger categories in order to take advantage of different searchers who might be looking for something similar but aren't specifically searching for tarot. Yes, you can make anything succeed on Etsy depending on how much work you're willing to put in. Now, while we're here, this seller had a second question. She wanted me to talk to her about making her photos work for sales. Making sure that your photos work on Etsy is the most important thing. If you have an item on Etsy that isn't selling, you need to ask yourself if it's your photography, because that is the number one thing that will designate whether something sells or does not on Etsy. Because when customers are looking through search pages, they're really only looking for something that catches their eye, and that's why your photos are so important. Let's take a look at one of her items, like a mug here, and let's compare it to some similar bestsellers on Etsy. Now, if we search for tarot mug, here's her mug right here, and there's nothing wrong with this photo. It's just that when we compare it to some of her competition, I can clearly see what's on this mug. It's a very large mug. I know if there's any text what it says, so I can see text clearly on some of these competing mugs. And I know what's going on here. Now on her mug, it is a beautiful photo, but the fact is I can't tell what's on this mug. I can't read the text. I can't really see who this is. So just cropping into this photo so that I can clearly see what's going on in this item makes a huge difference. When you're scrolling through Etsy and you can't see what's on an item, or in the case of photos like this, really what an item actually is, it confuses buyers, so they're just going to scroll right past you. You want to make it super clear what your item is, what it's used for, and what it says on it if you want to make your photos work for you. Making it super clear what something is, which she's done well right here by showing people that this is a sticker, that's what you want to do in your photo. If I can't tell what something is, I'm not going to click on it. An even better option for a photo like this would be to have somebody peeling something like this off so it's clearly a sticker. The clearer you can make what you're selling in the photo, the better it's going to do. And you can always look at mock-ups or photos on Pinterest for inspiration of how to get your photos to work better. If your photos aren't at the level of those that you're seeing in the mock-ups or on Pinterest, you may want to consider swapping some of your photos out for mock-ups and seeing how they do in comparison to the old items. So here are some simple examples of mock-ups on a graphic design store that specifically sells them. Here is an apparel mock-up, for example, where you can Photoshop or drop your design onto any kind of clothing. Same here with the leggings. There are tons of options. You can get pillows, anything you can sell, there is a mock-up probably available for it. And it'll give you a yardstick with which to measure if your photos are good enough to sell on Etsy. Now, just because a mock-up is selling doesn't mean it's perfect the way it is. So for example, this item is absolutely beautiful, but on Etsy, it still might be hard to read. So I would still crop in here so you can see exactly what's on the item. Being able to read and clearly understand what your items are the most important thing about your photos. The other thing that's super important is making sure they're well lit and beautiful so people are attracted to your items. So when you're trying to figure out why your items aren't selling, think about that. Is your category a big category on Etsy? If not, you need to supplement. Or are your photos good enough to sell on Etsy? So many people think they can just take a photo and sell an item, but customers want to know more. They want to know how something fits. They want to know how it looks from every angle. And they want your photos to be beautiful because they're not going to buy something that looks all crumbled up and dark. So make sure that you're using this method to figure out whether your items are right for Etsy. Thanks for watching this 6-minute makeover, and don't forget to check below the video for all the resources I mentioned here.